Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Dimitri Johnson, and you're listening to MMALatestNews.com.
It's time to roll, baby.
Hello everybody, welcome back to MMA Latest for our preview of UFC 242 Khabib versus Poirier, which will take place on Saturday in Abu Dhabi with the main event for the strap at £155. Starting off, as previously mentioned, with the main event, Khabib versus Dustin Poirier. Khabib making his second defense of his belt, obviously the first being that monumental fight that took place at UFC 229 against Conor McGregor, which, in all honesty, Khabib dominated from start to finish, bar that third round, which a lot of people are giving to Conor McGregor, the only round people are saying that Khabib has lost in his UFC career. Khabib obviously boasting that undefeated record, very seldom seen in MMA these days, coming up against a tough task. I mean, nobody's given Dustin Poirier really a chance, which I feel is pretty shocking, to be honest. 5-0 with one no contest in his last 6 fights for Poirier. It's hard to believe he's come a long way since that kid who got starched by Conor McGregor in the first round, all the way back when he was fighting at 145. But you look at the list of names that Poirier scratched off in his last few fights. You look at Alvarez, you look at Pettis, you look at Max Holloway in a 5-round fight. Obviously Holloway coming up from 145 pounds, but 155, to be honest, if you ask my opinion, is Max Holloway's most natural weight. And you're coming into this fight, obviously I think Khabib will definitely be the heavy favourite. Bookmakers have him coming in at around 2-9, Dustin Poirier I should say, coming in at around 10-3. Poirier coming in, no shortage of confidence, telling MMA fighting, it's huge, it's history. When I go out there and beat Khabib, it's not a question of I am the best UFC lightweight, it's a question of I am the best lightweight to ever fight in mixed martial arts with the run I'm on. Max Holloway, Anthony Pettis, Eddie Alvarez, Khabib Nurmagomedov, winning over those guys in a row in main events over and over. That's the best run in lightweight history. If I go out there and stop Khabib, I'm the best lightweight fighter to ever strap on a pair of 4-ounce gloves. Simple and plain, Poirier said. I'm not wrong in saying that. I think, to be honest, this is definitely going to be, bar that Tony Ferguson fight, the toughest test for Khabib to face at £155. I can't see anyone else in that 155 division causing him any issues. We've seen someone like Barboza, a kickboxing specialist, be absolutely mauled by someone like Khabib. We saw obviously in the McGregor fight, which stylistically not many people thought was going to be an easy ride for him. He completely rode the wave in that and dominated from start to finish, as I previously said. But pretty surprised that a lot of bookmakers have Dustin coming in at over 3-1. If you ask my opinion, bold call I'm going to make, I think Dustin can get the job done. I think he's going to have to finish Khabib early. I don't think I think Khabib's gas tank is there's been doubts raised about it, but I think he silenced a lot of critics, not only in the McGregor fight, but if you remember that Iaquinta fight, which he took on short notice, people saying he didn't win convincingly. You have to remember Khabib had 2 changes of opponents in 1 week, obviously from Ferguson to Holloway and then to Iaquinta. Totally different game plan, totally different fighters, but I think Poirier, for me, if you want my prediction, I'm going Poirier by knockout in the first round. So now let's take a look at the co-main event for me, which is a surefire to be fight of the night. Edson Barboza taking on Paul Felder in a rematch. Their first fight took place at UFC on Fox 16 all the way back in 2015, with Barboza getting the nod in that. That one fight of the night back then, and you only have to look at some of the quotes coming out from Edson Barboza in the past few days, saying that when he kicked Paul Felder with a spinning back kick in the groin, it felt like he nearly broke his ankle. But looking at the facts going into this fight, Barboza on probably the worst run of his career. But to be fair, though, it can't be put down to any lack of skill. You look at the opponents he's faced, Khabib, Justin Gaethje in that last fight was a pretty devastating knockout. I think that was the fight where Edson needed to get back on track. You look in contrast to Paul Felder, who's 4-0 in his last 4 fights at 155. The only fight he's dropped was a split decision to Mike Perry, moving up, taking the fight on short notice at 170. And Mike Perry, as we all know, no easy fight by all means at £175. But definitely this fight for me, fight of the night. You're looking at the odds going into this. Barboza coming in at 4-6. Paul Felder in at 6-5 is the underdog, which is pretty shocking to me when you just look at the facts that Paul Felder is on that 4-fight win streak. Obviously, Edson has fought that higher caliber of opponent, but I think this is the first. I think this is really the fight that Paul Felder has deserved for a long time. Always been, notching around that top 15 mark, top 10, top 15, never quite getting the big fight. This definitely the biggest fight of his career, with Edson Barboza established as a top 5 contender at £155. And, it should come as no surprise looking as well at the fact that the last fight ended up as fight of the night. Paul Felder saying that Edson's low kicks caused him to urinate blood after the fight. And this one is going to be an absolute war. I think fight of the night for sure as well. And you look at some of the stuff going into the fight. Paul Felder with a few quotes saying, "I know and respect how good Edson is, and I think that's bringing the best out of me in this training camp. I fought him and he beat me, the first loss of my professional career. I'm very excited and hungry to get it back. I'm nervous, but good nerves. It's a very exciting fight for me and excited me for the first time." You know, I've said before as well, when you look at that 155 rankings, I still don't think there's anyone outside, as I said, Dustin or Tony Ferguson, who could cause serious trouble to Khabib. But it would be nice to see Paul Felder get a big fight off this, or even a title fight, to be fair. And you never know. Paul Felder, one of the most underrated fighters at 155 and at 170 as well. You saw he took a guy like Mike Perry 3 rounds and very nearly got the nod on a short fight notice. But for me, that co-main event is really worthy of stealing the show and is sure to be fight of the night. You look at the rest of the card as well, laced with Dagestani fighters on it. Shouldn't come as no surprise. Obviously, Khabib, the draw, is going to get the eyes of the Russian audience onto the card. And his teammate, Islam Makhachev, fighting Davy Ramos. Islam Makhachev just breaking into that top 15 at 155. And you know how hard that is just to get into that top 15, riding a 6-fight win streak. And you just have to look at his fight against Gleison Tebow, that devastating knockout. I think it was in something like 41 seconds. Obviously, it's not the Gleison Tebow of 10 years ago, where actually Gleison Tebow, debatably the only guy who beat Khabib, to be honest. If you look back at that fight, it would have been back in like 2012, 2013. Someone in the comments can correct me. Gleison Tebow nearly getting the nod against Khabib. But Islam Makhachev, one of the few, or one of the many, I should say, Dagestanis featuring on this card, and a fight against Davy Ramos will definitely solidify his name. Probably won't creep into the top 10, but definitely riding a 7-fight win streak. He's sure, should he beat Davy Ramos, that is, he's sure to get a big fight in his next fight. Going on to that as well, Davy Ramos, it shouldn't say, he's riding a 4-fight win streak as well. So it is that step up in competition for Makhachev, but knocking someone like this off a list, getting it to 7-fight win streak, it should be due a top 10 fight after that. Marbek Taisumov coming back as well. I think he was a 6-month suspension, I believe, for a tainted supplement ban. But this guy, again, he's another one riding a heavy win streak in the UFC. 6-fight win streak, I should say, at 155 pounds. He's taken on Brazilian Carlos Diego Ferreira, who is also, like Davy Ramos, riding a 4-fight win streak. And you only have to look at the power at the UFC Rotterdam card. With Taisumov, he's Ariel Helwani has said he's probably one of the most unsung heroes at 155. Taisumov, an absolute killer. Not just the traditional wrestling base that most Dagestani fighters come from. The power this guy holds in his hands is absolutely ridiculous. And I think a lot more of us would be singing his name had that retrospective ban for a tainted supplement not come into place. He probably would have had maybe 1 or 2 more fights under his belt with an 8-9 fight win streak. But as we all know, that 155 division, so crowded, so stacked, so dense with talent, it is hard to stand out sometimes. And I think you have to develop a kind of win streak that Tony Ferguson has to really stand a chance of becoming a mainstream name, getting the eyes on you, to stand out amongst that group of killers, to be honest. Another fight to look out for on the main card is Curtis Blaydes taking on Shamil Abdurakhimov in a top 10 heavyweight bout. Obviously, Curtis Blaydes sitting comfortably in the top 5 of that heavyweight division, taking on Shamil Abdurakhimov, who has taken on some of the biggest names in the sport. You look at the likes of Derek Lewis, came up short of that, nearly took Lewis 5 rounds for Lewis to get him out of there. But Curtis Blaydes, one of those unsung heroes in the heavyweight division. You look at some of the performances he's been putting out over the past few years, that devastating knockout against Alistair Overeem when he was on top, dropping those elbows. A comfortable professional performance against Mark Hunt, I remember, taking him down, even though he got clipped early on. Obviously hit a few snags. That rematch against Francis Ngannou, which a lot of us held, he was the only guy. He got stopped on the stool in the first fight against Ngannou. Obviously starched in pretty quick fashion in that Beijing card last year. But I think Curtis Blaydes, you look at that heavyweight division, there's no way. It's nowhere near as stacked as 155. As I said, it is a division lacking in depth. It is a division lacking in household names. I think you only really need to win something like 2 fights to crack the top 15 at heavyweight. But make no mistake, I think Curtis Blaydes, a win here, or a convincing win, could definitely set up, another top 5 fight, which would put him, I think, in the title picture completely. I think he does need to get one more win after this, and I fully expect him to get the job done over someone like Abdurrakhimov and to push on and get that top 5 fight. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like, share and subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter and Facebook. We will be doing a watch along for UFC 242 on Saturday. Stephen Housen joined by a few guests, and I'll see you then. Cheers.